Jack struggled with finding his place in the world as a non-blood abbot. Was his instant recovery to the devastating news a little too unreal, as his family believed? Or can Jack finally break out of the box of always standing in the shadow of his dad's image? It's betrayal, love, and the prom, all in 2 scoops. As Jack was still reeling from the news that he was not John's biological son, he also tried to keep a grip on reality and not go spinning completely out of control. I give him a whole lot of credit for that. Jack's world had come crashing down all around him, and he felt he had lost his identity. To Jack, he had always been the son of beloved John Abbott, the man he had admired, respected, cherished, and looked up to all his life. When his mother deserted him, Jack still had his dad teaching him the way to be a leader of both the family business and of the family. It was no wonder that Jack idolized John. So, it wasn't a surprise that Jack would turn to booze and possibly even pills when he learned the horrific news that he wasn't a biological abbot. He probably felt that John's teachings had been all for naught. How could Jack lead Jabbo into remaining the successful company that his father had created if he wasn't related by blood? And how could his family accept him as a sibling when he wasn't biologically a part of them? Oh, sure, Jack had known for years that Ashley wasn't a blood abbot, but he still had accepted her as his sister. Only this time, it was different. This time, Jack was the one who wasn't a blood relative, and that must have wounded him deeply. Thank goodness Jack never took the pills and even seemed ready to jump back into the burning pit of fire at Jabbo. Of course, that ding-dong blood abbot clause had kicked him out of the CEO seat to be replaced by his brother, Billy. Why has it been so difficult to get rid of the clause? I don't get it. The board of directors at Jabbo should have met ages ago, when Jack first realized what a mistake it had been to use the clause against Ashley. Have a meeting, vote it out, and all is good with the world and with the company. Presto, change-o, poof! The clause could have vanished into thin air. But the thing has hung around, taunting any abbot that comes within sight. Billy and Tracy had better find a way to get rid of it pronto, before they learn they weren't blood abbots, either. Shoot, blood abbots are quickly becoming extinct in Genoa City. Okay, so Jack's not John Abbott's biological son? Since he had always used his dad as a measuring stick of success, loyalty, honesty, and goodness, and he had never measured up in his own mind, maybe Jack should be ready to try not being the son of John Abbott for a change by becoming his own person. He could finally break out of his jack-in-the-box to become an ethical, devoted, and steadfast man of his own making. Sure, Jack could still take everything he had learned from his father to move forward, but he no longer needed to compete with John's image, both professionally and personally. Jack no longer needed to battle the ghost of his beloved dad. Jack finally could create his own success by following his own path. Jack spent so many years wondering what his dad would do in different situations. It became more of a hindrance than a help. John's legend kept getting in Jack's way, but more for himself than for others. Jack was always way too hard on himself because he felt he was always falling short of his wonderfully moral dad. Of course, Victor hadn't made it any easier by constantly reminding Jack that he was nothing like his father. But now, maybe Jack can let his insecurities regarding that go. Seriously, there isn't much more left that Victor can take away from his archenemy. Once he stripped Jack of the identity of being his father's son, Victor pretty much lost his power over Jack, which still would give Jack little comfort. Man, Jack had the worst nightmare ever when he dreamed that Dinah claimed Victor was his father. I had actually considered that, since Victor was always kind to Dinah and treated her like a queen whenever she was around. Victor wasn't that nice to a lot of people, not even to Nikki, so I had to wonder. But now that Jack's had a nightmare, it surely can't be true. If it was, the writers would have saved it for a huge shocking reveal later on. Anyway, the next thing you know, Jack spelled out the words, "No," with his pills on the cabin's coffee table and was suddenly and miraculously cured. Or was he? Ashley and Billy sure didn't think so, but Jack truly looked like he was ready to find his own way in the world, despite not being a biological abbot. He never took any of the pills, so he had found the strength to fight the temptation to do that. Actually, Jack might be more of John's son than anyone was giving him credit for, since he seemed determined to show everyone that he was still a force to be reckoned with. His father had taught him well, and Jack wanted to prove that he could still be the one to lead the family company toward a future of more profits and success. And Billy was even on Jack's bandwagon, until he wasn't. Billy's first order of business was originally to get rid of the dreaded blood Abbott clause that had already caused so much pain and devastation in their family. But Billy had a sudden change of heart after talking to Phyllis. Oh, yes, Phyllis stressed it was time for Billy to take charge of Jabbo and to try the CEO position out for size. Phyllis thought Billy should move the company forward with his own vision, but somehow, I get the feeling that the driving force of the vision will be Phyllis. She even made a comment that Ashley could have found her way around the blood Abbott clause if she had really wanted to run Jabbo, and it seemed that Phyllis had found a way to do just that. Billy would be the face and blood of the business, while Phyllis would be the one holding and guiding the reins. After his little chat with Phyllis, Billy went from wanting his position in charge to be only temporary to suddenly declaring that Jack was not ready to return because he was still in denial. It seemed like Billy was actually the one in denial, though, since he betrayed his brother after claiming he would be the one to always have his back. And Billy knew that Jabbo was Jack's lifeline of holding on to the identity of the man known as Jack Abbott. While the women in his life had betrayed him, Jabbo had always been there for him, through thick and thin, which wasn't a bad thing. But Phyllis had found her way to the top, and she used Billy to secure it for her. Oh, yes. Phyllis had her own agenda. Actually, it was almost like Billy was doing everything he could to keep Jack from having any confidence or belief in himself and from keeping whatever part of his identity he could. Taking the job of CEO wasn't enough. Billy then thought that making Jack share an office with Kyle would work wonders on Jack's self-respect. Billy's idea of helping his brother could sure use a major overhaul. So, Jack believed he could bide his time and then he and Kyle could pounce. Once Billy made his usual mistakes, however, Jack was overlooking one very crucial detail. Phyllis was the captain who was actually steering that ship. And the former Red was no dummy. Jack should know that better than anyone. Billy even wanted Jack's son in at Jabbo, so Kyle could have Billy's back. Oh, just like Billy had Jack's back? It seemed each Abbott should watch his or her back, because they all held a knife, intending on stabbing the backs of the other family members. Billy's excuse for not getting rid of the Abbott clause was just flimsy. Jack wasn't falling apart. On the contrary, he was doing everything he could to hold it together, despite his family's so-called help. Besides, what possible reason could Billy have for not even looking at Ashley's ideas for Jabbo? Jack and Ashley should get a front row seat and just watch when Billy crashes and burns again. Sadly, he may take the family business down with him, though. And Billy seemed to be on that path when he thought Jabbo's employees would prefer perks such as popcorn over raises and bonuses. Then, with Phyllis forming the words in his head, Billy vowed to eliminate John's signature fragrance at Jabbo to show everyone just whose company it really was. It was just too bad he didn't know that himself. Phyllis sure was calling all the shots. Jack truly believed it was the beginning of the end for Jabbo, and it sure was, for Jabbo as Jack knew it. Wow, Jack must have been reading my very thoughts because he decided it was time for him to pursue something new. Since he felt he could no longer defend the Abbott name, values, and honor, he believed it was time to find his true self, and with Jack's experience and money and Kyle's drive, they should start their own business. It was just too bad Kyle didn't want to do that. But why didn't Kyle tell his dad that when they were talking, just the two of them, instead of announcing it to Jack in front of Billy and Phyllis? How much more humiliation does Jack's family want to heap on him? Jack had better hope he has some friends to help him build his new career, because his family members seem to be his biggest obstacles to his future success. Sharon and Nick have so much history together, which makes it sweet that they are willing to give it another try as a couple. They have both grown up and matured, even if they were acting like teenagers. Even through all the hard times they had gone through in the past, Sharon and Nick were always able to get past it all to remain friends. That alone shows the love they have had for each other. no matter what had happened between them. When Nick needed someone to talk to, he would turn to Sharon. When everyone else had given up on Sharon, Nick remained her friend. Even the fact that Sharon and Nick felt they should talk realistically about how they had changed, so they wouldn't repeat past mistakes, showed that they had indeed changed. However, Nikki sure didn't see that Sharon had changed, although she really couldn't complain outwardly too much, since she was still partners in crime with her ex-daughter-in-law and keeping the truth hidden about JT's death. The real shock came when Victor thought that Nick and Sharon's reunion was wonderful news, and he even gave Nick his blessing. What? Are my ears deceiving me? Actually, I believe Victor's well wishes were genuine. Victor felt closer to Nick after he had overheard Nick's feelings about his father while Victor was in a coma, and he only wanted for his son to be happy. That really was sweet, if Victor was truly sincere. I would say maybe there's hope for Victor yet, but I know better. Besides, he also used the opportunity to try to convince his son to return to work at Newman Enterprises, so he definitely used his blessing to his advantage. And Nick bit right into it? Apparently, Nick was still searching for his own identity. Who would have guessed that Nick and Jack would have the same problem? So, gone were the memories of all the terrible means of manipulation Victor had used against him in the past. Nick seemed to have selective amnesia when he chose to believe that his dad had changed his evil ways. Baby Carlos Santana would be so proud. So, Sharon turned to the only ally she thought she would have in her cause to save Nick from Victor and himself, her new BFF, Victoria. Only Victoria sided with Nick and felt they could become a united front at Newman Enterprises to squash their common foe, Ashley. I'll bet Sharon regretted making that phone call. Shoot, she should have called Abby, who believed Nick's return to the company would just drop her another notch down on Victor's food chain. Nick loved to play protector, and he needed a new cause, so he chose to be the family's savior. Really, he should have done that years ago to save them all from Victor, only he was one of his dad's targets, too. So, why would anything change between Victor and Nick? I don't know, but Nick swore that it would, because Victor had changed. Okay. Come on, even Phyllis knew Nick's return to Newman Enterprises was a bad idea. I'm surprised lightning didn't strike, since it was one of those rare instances where Phyllis and Sharon actually agreed on something. Sharon feared that under Victor's thumb, Nick would just be spinning his wheels. But Nick had to follow his heart and return to the family business, and Sharon claimed she would support them. Nick wished he had his old soul, darling daughter there to advise him, as Sharon and Nick remembered Cassie in the Newman stables. It's terrific that all this time after her death, a tribute is paid to Cassie each year at this time. Then there's Devin and Hillary, who haven't changed a lick. Actually, I feel like we are back to square one with this couple. Devin apparently didn't learn a thing, or he just didn't care anymore. Devin had probably been pretending all this time, just so he wouldn't look like such a fool, but the pretense was over. He wanted the excitement of being with Hillary despite the cost of her constant lies and deceit. Devin must think a baby's going to magically make that all go away, but that won't happen. And if Hillary believes that, too, she is only deceiving herself, which is somehow appropriate. After all, Hillary is the master, or mistress in this case, of deception. Shoot. Devin practically had Hillary moving back into his condo, even before they learned she was pregnant. And if she isn't pregnant, that will only give them another excuse to do it the natural way again for the sake of the contract. Oh, yeah. Devin was looking like that lost puppy again, following her around everywhere she went. He was even throwing money at her problems to eliminate them as he'd done before. It will be interesting to see just how long it will take this time for Hillary's duplicity to end up kicking that little doggy to the curb. Again. So, as Devin panted around Hillary at GC Buzz and she lapped up all of the adoration, it was surprising that all of that sugary sweetness didn't make Mariah sick. And since Hillary was all aglow from Devin's attention, she wanted to share her joy with her little protege by matchmaking Shauna with Tarly for the prom. Oh, joy. Another goody two-shoes, bland girl being paired up with another dull Mr. Nice Guy. Why do the writers always create a teen story about two boring youths? Didn't they see that didn't work at all with Reed and Matty? It would have been much more interesting if they had found a young femme fatale to ensnare the boy into her web. You know, as Hillary would have done. Actually, since Hillary herself has been rather yawn-inducing lately, a younger version of her might just have been the ticket. Hillary could even have trained the girl in her wicked ways. Now that might have been fun to watch. But instead, we are stuck with this snoozefest between two teens who are just so nicey. Ho-hum. But the prom must go on, and everyone got dressed to the hilt, even Hillary. Good grief, Hillary couldn't tell the truth even if her life depended on it. Not even about her past. That fact should be a humongous red flag that even Devon should be able to see, but he had his usual blinders on. Devon just continued to try to correct the mistakes in Hillary's life. There was no way Devon could rewrite her history as much as he wished to because really, nobody could possibly correct that many mistakes. Instead of lying about being prom queen of her high school, Hillary could have told an inspirational and more truthful story of her prom disappointment by showing that she had overcome the adversity of what had happened. Why tell a lie when the truth could work out so much better? Because it's Hillary, that's why. But Devon was completely enamored, anyway, and gave Hillary the prom night she had never had. And he topped off the night by crowning her queen. So, Hillary became the queen bee, which was somehow appropriate, since she already ruled over her buzzing bees at GC Buzz. And please, I am not ready for another round of Mariah and Tessa. Mariah deserves so much better. But Kyle appeared to be entranced with the dark-haired lovely, and Tessa seemed to know it. Tessa was just fine with going to a movie with both Kyle and Mariah but changed her tune, pun intended, when Mariah was unable to go. Was Tessa just playing hard to get? Other notable, or humorous, items that happened during the week. Sharon couldn't have said it any better when she asked Nikki how she and Victor had managed to work things out after reuniting for the 900th time. Nikki and Victor do seem to break up and reunite almost at the drop of a hat. I loved the pictures of Mariah in possible outfits she might have worn if she had gone to the prom. Cute. Arturo looked pretty dashing and debonair in that fitted suit Abby picked out for him, didn't he? I'll bet he'll be dressed a little less formally, and a little less, on his trip to Miami with Abby. Did it ever dawn on Hillary that she would have needed to be popular to get the votes to become prom queen? If she treated her fellow high school peers with the same nastiness she treats almost everyone else except Devon, it's no wonder she didn't win.